Oh, no, I have it in mind.
Got the best coaches in the game. We really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block. Helmets, casket is top.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Bold Call Fantasy Football and now Bestball podcast, brought to you by Dfs Army and presented by Underdog Fantasy. All right, we've got another episode for you, and today we are looking at a round-by-round look at players we love and players we hate. So who's going to bust? Who do we target? I've got my man, season-long Sez, here with me to break this down for us. What's up, Sez?
Did you ever get like a cut on like the upper part of your gum? That happened to me today. Like a piece of food got cut in it, like it sliced it. And now it's just like, it's causing me like constant misery. I tried rinsing with salt water. I tried getting, I mean, what's the trick to subsiding this pain?
Yeah, no salt water. You got to go an alcohol based.
Yeah. All right.
Rinse for something like that. You got to numb it. Ideally with some vodka.
Yeah. I tried that last night. All right, man. This podcast that you just introduced, this is like one of my favorite ways to really discuss which players you like in a site like Underdog Fantasy. Like you go round by round. Who are the guys you're targeting in that round? Who are the guys that you think are sleepers, values, and then who are the ones that you're just totally avoiding, busts? I mean, that is the way to do it.
I love that because I've done about 55 best ball drafts at this point. Yeah, I've done some season long, but I love the best ball format because, again, as a DFS enthusiast, I don't have time during the week to really concentrate on too many season long leagues. I have 4 or 5 that I'm in, Dynasty and regular, and that's beyond all I can handle. But I love drafting. And also, I strongly feel I have an edge in this format, which is why I think it's just a great thing. And it's going to be a moneymaker for me. It was last year. Before we get into this, dude, I got to talk about something I've been seeing online. I don't know if it's because, some new sites launched best ball this year. Maybe it's because the format has become more interesting. DraftKings has it now. Of course, Underdog is back, or Draft has come back as Underdog, a whole new site for this. And there's a few other best ball sites out there, but
there's no question that best ball is becoming a more mainstream game to play before the season.
Well, a lot of people are at least talking about it. And here's what's interesting. They're posting, I'm seeing what are industry experts, and I'm not going to name any names, but I'm seeing what are people who or kind of go by the mantra of being industry experts out there excitedly posting their best ball teams, right? On Twitter, on social media. And again, names that you know. I'm not going to say the names, but names that you know. And they're out there excitedly posting these teams, and they're terrible. Like they're completely done the wrong way. And I'm like, oh my God, I think actually this brings us to our guest. We're going to have a guest on a little later. I'll bring that up. But do these people have any idea how this format works? They don't. They look like the teams that I was drafting 3 years ago or 4 years ago when I first discovered it. I was like, what's best ball? Let me try it. I didn't understand. It took me a full year of playing it.
When you say that these are the teams that you're seeing posted on social media, and you said those are teams that you drafted 3 years ago, you mean structurally, correct?
Yeah, structurally. All I care about, best ball is all about the structure. And, we get into player picks on this show, but structure is the number one thing. We did a full 2 hours. We did 2 one-hour episodes about how you should structure your team. We talked about how running back on your best ball team, you need every position scoring for you every single week. This isn't like regular season long. So I think the expert consensus, the fake expert consensus, because that's what's out there, guys. People who are full of shit. And that's what I'm getting at. People who are full of shit who haven't played it. I know, I don't care. They don't want friends with the injury. I don't give a fuck. People who are full of shit are out there telling you that, everybody's going for running back, so I'm going to be contrarian and I'm going to load up on wide receiver. What are you, stupid? When you have a best ball team, you need every position scoring for you. So if you don't have multiple starting running backs that are putting up points week 1, you're going to lose. I don't care if somebody gets corona and in week 7 and you get a 3-week. It doesn't matter. If you didn't have the position scoring for you from the first week, it's a cumulative score. You're not gonna win. So if you get zeros from any position group ever, you're pretty much not going to win.
Basically, just, I mean, again, no one was a genius that took Christian McCaffrey last year. You just had pick 2, because if you were a genius, you would have taken a pick 1. But just to nail home the point, 33% of best ball winners last year had McCaffrey. And then I think that when you look down the highest percentage chance to win, it was those who had the running backs who made it through, the big running backs.
It's not just big running backs, a lot of them. That really is what it comes down to. I've said this before. Having a bunch of second-tier running backs is the worst strategy. You don't want backups. You don't want that clogging up your roster, because late round wide receivers actually play and actually score. Late round tight ends actually play and they actually score every single week. When you draft Alexander Mattison, or if you draft Jerick McKinnon, he's not scoring for you. He needs multiple injuries in front of him.
I take issue with Jerick McKinnon, but that's for another argument.
That's fine. That's fine. But my point is, if you start taking these back, Tony Pollard, he doesn't score for you. I get it. You're hoping for a Zeke injury. Even if Zeke gets hurt week 8, if that's your RB3, you're not going to win because it was too late. Your team is already dead because you didn't draft running back. So I just want a quick reiteration. And actually, this brings us to our guest today. We have actually Nick Rudman from Underdog Fantasy, the communications director and an expert in Bestball, coming on around 4:00. And we're going to ask him some of these questions about structurally what kind of setups I already know the answer, but I want to hear it from the horse's mouth, from the people with the data.
Maybe there's something we don't know that we're missing. That's what I'm curious about.
I certainly hope so. So I just wanted to get into that at the beginning, because it's like a phenomenon I've seen this year, and people are out there very proud of these.
Well, you know what they're doing.
I'm like, and I'm responding, by the way. I'm like, dude, you look like you forgot to draft running backs. And no, that's my strategy. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, you know what it is that is ignoring running back, or going zero running back, or anchor running back, however you want to call it. It is a very sound and optimal strategy for redraft, where you have in-season management. It does work. It's the best ball format where I think it's not optimal.
Well, it's definitely not optimal, because I've done this, and that's not what won. Not only when I play, I don't just look at my lineup, guys. I look at this is across all things that you should do. This is how I learned it the first year. I went in the first year that I tried best ball leagues, and I was kind of doing something like that too. I was drafting it like a season-long league. And what I figured out was, at the end of the season, I was like, who won the league this year? Who won the other 8 leagues? And I saw how they drafted, and it wasn't what I was doing. So I was like, okay, that's what works. Let's shift over and start doing that. Nothing can stop you from getting unlucky with injuries. That's going to happen. Like, you just get hurt. Players get hurt. We can't avoid it, but we can draft in an optimal way. And that is, again, you have to have 3 to 4 startable running backs on your roster if you want to win one of these. And you need at least 2 or 3 of them to make it through the season. So having a backup for, a 5th running back that's a backup to one of them is the way to go. That way you have 5. You have protection. And then you load up on wide receiver late.
Yeah, and the reason that works in a best ball, the structurally, is that one of the worst parts about regular fantasy football, the in-season management, the one that you play at your office or with your home friends or whatever league you play in, is that the worst part of fantasy is having to pick between those 2 or 3 wide receivers that it's impossible. Do I start Sterling Shepard? Do I start Jamison Crowder? Or do I start Deontay Johnson this week coming off a bad week? Or do I start whatever other wide receiver 4 that you drafted, Cortland Sutton, that hasn't panned out? So, but in best ball, where you don't have to call the shot, where the best score will automatically be inserted into your lineup, that problem goes away. And the case for drafting early wide receivers, like you would in a season-long league, the benefit is there. So, if you draft Julio Jones in the 2nd round, even if Julio has 2 bad weeks in a row, you're not even thinking about it. You're going to start him. It's those receivers that you didn't take in the top few rounds of your draft that are going to cause you headaches. This is why you come to the Bowl Call Fantasy Football Podcast, to really understand the strategy behind winning these games. Go to the other people, and I don't know why. Maybe they're entertaining. We're going to teach you the strategy of how to win the stuff. So what you said is 100% true. I don't want to start Randall Cobb
week after week after week in my season-long league, because there's going to be a lot of weeks where he gets you a 2, a 4, a 3, a 6. But Randall Cobb's going to get you 23 points 4 times over the course of a 16-game season. Jamison Crowder is going to get you 7-9 points every week, but occasionally he's going to pop for 21. So, but I don't want to start him in my season-long league because I can't almost ever afford like a 6 from a player like that. In best ball, it doesn't matter. If I have 8 of those guys on my team, at least 3 of them should be producing every single week, just like elite wide receivers. I can't do that with a bunch of backup running backs. I can't have freaking these Raquel Armsteads. He gets you 0 when he's not scoring. It's like it's nothing. And and to start a team with no one ahead of him, it's crazy. So I love it. The point that I'm making here isn't to rip on these people who are posting their terrible lineups. It's to explain that there is still an edge. There's advice that's being given out by popular names that's really, really bad. So that helps us. We like that. I love it. I'm in leagues. I've been raising the dollar amount of my cash game style leagues, the ones that aren't part of tournaments, because I see the mistakes that these opponents are making, and I want to exploit it while we can. In 2 years from now, everybody will know this stuff. That's the beauty of getting in early. Just like with anything else, we used to be really slick when we would take quarterbacks really, really late, and we would burn all of our league mates who didn't understand scarcity of position. Now everybody knows that, so you can't even get there. So you have to think of other things. So there it is. A little rant at the beginning here. Let's now jump into player discussions. And again, the topic for today, we're going to go round by round, the first 5-10 rounds, hopefully, and just go through the players that I keep winding up with, the players that I keep drafting, and the ones that I avoid like the plague. Okay, and let's start with round 1, man. Round 1, very tough to find anyone you want to super avoid. They're all really, really good.
Well, you're not like, obviously the answer would be, I want to come out with Christian McCaffrey. We're not talking about that. We're talking about if you have like pick 10. So when you have pick 10, if you have pick 7, pick 8, pick 9, whatever, you're going to have your option, because after the top 6 or 7, it drop off. It basically, the guy that you take at pick 9 could easily be available at pick 15 in the second round. So I think that's, when we're talking about the first one, that's kind of where we have to go with it. Who are the guys after the obvious 6 or 7 that you're willing to take in the first round, or you will take in the first round? And
guys that you avoid. So, I mean, obviously, yes, I'm not going to say Christian McCaffrey. If I think you're at a massive advantage this season if you get pick number 1 and you get to have the super stud in Christian McCaffrey. If you were even double thinking that, you should just not play fantasy football anymore. Just do something. Collect stamps. What's wrong with stamps? It's a beautiful hobby, right? But if you're beyond that, so I'm going to give you mine here. I'm going to give you my guy that I try to come out of the first round with him. If I'm in the second part of or I'll give you my avoid first.
Stay focused.
I have two avoids. Well, I have 2 avoids. No, I have 2 avoids, and I'm going to give them both. For me, the 2 guys that I have not drafted even once, I don't have any exposure to Dalvin Cook this season, not any shares, and I don't have any exposure to Joe Mixon this season, nothing. And I'm going to give you my reasoning. I know it's controversial. With Dalvin Cook, between the holdout stuff, between his frequent injuries, I just don't want to. I don't know what it is. He's great. I have him on some dynasty teams. Great player. He does always seem to get hurt late in the season. I also think the team wants to limit his touch load because of it. I just don't believe he's going to get 20-plus touches regularly as the season rolls on. I do believe that the Vikings think he's not able to handle it. So we'll see. One of the nice things is you can usually take Clyde Edwards-Helaire or Derrick Henry or Cook. Like, those guys are available after him. I just go for those instead.
Yeah, the DFS Army rankings last night. I had a couple whiskeys in me, I'll admit it, but and I was tinkering with my rankings last night. At one point, I was seeing double, but I still think I did a good job because I checked it over this morning.
You were dealing with the.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, but no, I moved Derrick Henry up, and I think I put him at number 5, even in PPR. And the reason is, we've often said on this podcast, you can't win your draft in the first round, but you certainly could lose it. I've said that over and over again, and it's obvious, but it stands true. Don't try to be a hero in the first round, and that's the case why I'm not drafting Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Yeah,
the upside's there. Right. So that's the hero play. And is it worth it? Probably not, but that's the price you're going to have to pay. So if you like that fancy piece of jewelry, you're going to have to overpay for it. But Derrick Henry, to me, represents the player with the highest, outside of Christian McCaffrey, even including Saquon Barkley, but excluding Christian McCaffrey. Derrick Henry, to me, is the player that has the highest floor and still has the high ceiling. So of all of the first round guys, that's the player that I want to come away with. And if you listen back to our podcast in May, I told you not to draft Derrick Henry in the first round. And that was because, in PPR, it limits the upside, and that is true. But when the Titans gave Derrick Henry a 2-year extension, that said they know the window.
You're coming in a little bit off here, so okay. Let me jump in with this because I'm
gonna go out and come back in. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, there we go. Let me jump in on the Derrick Henry thing.
Well, can you hear me okay?
Now, yeah, you should probably pop out and come back in. There's something going on with your technicals, but here we go. I finally have you all to myself. I like it. So the reason that Derrick Henry, you can ignore his lack of PPR is because the guy is just otherworldly. He's like Marshawn Lynch back in the day. Derrick Henry.
Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to interrupt you, but I was just going to say, Derrick Henry, highest floor, still has the ceiling. I was a little nervous about telling you, DFS Army, to go get him in the first round because of the limitations of the PPR. But when the Tennessee Titans signed him to 2 more years guaranteed, they're in a win now window. So that to me says they're going to play how they played last year. And again, even if you take Derrick Henry at the 4th pick over Alvin Kamara or Dalvin Cook, and he finishes as the RB8, it's fine. It worked. You don't need to hit a home run in every pick. You could hit a double and be satisfied. In the first round, I think hitting a double is okay.
You could lock Derrick Henry in for multiple 30-plus point days. He's going to have 50 yards.
Are you good taking him over Alvin Kamara and Dalvin Cook?
I frequently do. So, yes. I mean, he's a touchdown scorer, and those guys aren't. I always take him over Dalvin Cook. That's just an automatic. Okay. So for me. And on Underdog, I just want to point out, Underdog, the half-point PPR format,
yeah,
he can go as high as number 3 overall. I don't mind taking him right ahead of Zeke Elliott. So he could go as high as 3 overall on Underdog. That is that's a half-point PPR format, and that very much increases the value of a Derrick Henry. The other guy but I want to talk about my don't guy. I don't pick Joe Mixon.
Oh,
and I know. Listen, he's fine. He's fine. It's fine. It's just not for me. And I'm going to tell you why. Joe Mixon seems to be built on hopes and dreams, and I don't like players built on hopes and dreams. Okay? He's a 2-down back on a losing team. It's very similar to Josh Jacobs right now. I'm not super into it because he hasn't shown 3-down back usage. Same thing here with Joe Mixon. I get it. Everybody's talking about the last few games, a change of offensive coordinator. All of that is true, and maybe things will change. But my experience of watching Joe Mixon for his whole career is he's a 2-down grinder back. He can catch passes, but the Bengals just don't want to keep him in on 3rd down. And because they're losing games a lot, now that's fine if you're the 2-down back on a winning team. The problem is when you're that on a losing team, it's a trouble. Now, essentially what I'm doing is I'm predicting that the Bengals team will be bad. You might say, what if they're good? I'd say, okay, well, I'll take you in the second round. But in the first round, as you said, I don't want to take chances with hopes and dreams of the Bengals turning around from being the worst team in the league last year to good, okay, because they have Joe Burrow, a rookie quarterback. It could happen, but I think it's more likely that they're still bad, that they're still playing from behind a lot, that they're still not going to be this run-focused team, because it's like the Jets. No one wants Le'Veon Bell. How is he different than Le'Veon Bell? Explain it to me, Says.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. And by the way, just checking my sound's okay right now?
You're still a little wobbly, but just keep going.
All right, let me do one more. I want to go out and come back in then because I think I know what the issue. I know what the problem is. I'll come out and just keep going, and I'll come back.
All right, let me jump to round 2 then, because of technical issues from Season Long Says. Plus, you guys want to hear from me anyway. Let's be real. Let's keep it real. We know what's up. All right, so I'm looking at round 2 now. We've gone through round 1. Round 2. Wow, did I say who I'm targeting heavily in round 1?
All right. Is that better?
There you go.
All right. Yeah, I know what the problem was now. Sorry, audience.
Connect the cord next time. All right. So
here we go. All right.
Wait, I didn't say who I was always coming away with. When I get to the late first round, it's Kenyan Drake for me. I want to point that out. He's a guy that I'm reaching for a little bit early. How about you?
Yeah, no, you know how I feel about Drake. I'm the same way. But with Joe Mixon, I think that he's been disappointing for fantasy. And it's funny enough that his comp for me coming out of college was Le'Veon Bell. And I know you just comped him to him for a minute. Now, Joe Mixon has caught about 35 passes. It's not a zero. I mean, he's each season. 1 year, I think he had 40 passes. And he has produced in long stretches despite bad conditions. And he's actually a really good running back. Now, we've talked about ad nauseum that Joe Burrow, the QB, is ready. He's mobile. The offensive is presumably going to be better. Now, favorite strategy of mine for fantasy is to look at players that disappointed for fantasy but produced in the last 6 or 8 weeks of the fantasy season. Joe Mixon, if you drafted him in the second round last year, you didn't make the playoffs. In fact, you're pissed off because your second round pick basically failed. And when he came on around week 9, it was too late. You were already 2-5, 1-8, whatever it was. But Joe Mixon produced about 17 fantasy points in horrible conditions. They get their rookie lineman back who he's going to be in his second year, Jonah Williams, who got hurt last season. So their offensive line should be presumably better. Again, I hear what you're saying. You don't want guys on bad teams. And there is some risk with Joe Mixon, which is why he's going the back end of the first round. But in a year where there's running back inflation and that workhorse running backs are few and far between, there's nobody behind Joe Mixon to threaten his workload. I mean, it's Giovanni Bernard and Trevion Williams there. But Joe Mixon is a lock for 230 carries and I think, 35, 40 catches. That pays the bills at pick 10.
I don't take Joe Mixon when Austin Eckler's available. I just don't want him. There's better guys. I'm not saying if he was there in the middle of the second round, I wouldn't take him.
Well, he's not. He's gone by pick 9.
He's gone. But I mean, I'm not taking him ahead of Austin Eckler, so he never ends up on my team. Yeah. It's as simple as that. I'd rather have Eckler, and he's always available after him. Kenyan Drake is always available after him. Josh Jacobs, who similar to Mixon for me. I don't love him, but he's always available after Mixon goes, and Miles Sanders a lot of times available. So like all of these guys who I like more, who have produced, are available later. Why would I take this guy who has a 5-year history of never being a stud? Like I get it.
It's only been 3 years, but I hear you. I mean, I think this is a big year for Joe Mixon. And listen, a lot of people are going to think exactly how you're thinking. And if you're not sure, there's so many other great picks in that round that don't take them. I mean, if you look at the DFS Army rankings, I have them as like the RB 5 or 6. I mean, it's getting a little
that's a strong disagreement area.
It might be 7. It's something like that. But yeah, I mean, I understand why you're passing them. I believe in the talent. I think the team's going to be better. Let's move on.
All right, let's go to round 2. So we're going through players that we don't draft in each round and players we're targeting heavily. For me, it's guys who are ending up on all my teams, right? So again, I'm focused on best ball because those are my drafts right now. I mean, I'm 40 best ball drafts in, so that's where my head is at.
Here's the round 2 question, because this is the one, round 2, it's pretty, ADP is pretty chalky. You're going to reach ahead for a running back, or you're going to take one of the receivers. Now,
your audio is still really bad. You're having connection issues, man.
Damn it.
Yeah.
And it's still bad right now.
Yeah, it's just been brutal.
All right. I will
continues to be brutal. So what I will do is intro round 2. Yeah. And round 2, again, in your best ball league, is where you should still be taking another quarterback, pretty much, another running back, pretty much. Don't mess with wide receiver at all here. I'm okay if you want to take Travis Kelce and go that way. Studliness at the tight end position, especially the number 1 tight end on the board, is totally fine in round 2, depending on who's around. But this is a spot really to avoid wide receivers. In best ball, for sure, I don't have any DeAndre Hopkins shares. I don't have any shares of Chris Godwin.
Hopkins is an avoid, right? You're not.
Hopkins is a major avoid this year in the second round. It's better. Hopkins is a major avoid in the second. Actually, that will be a great avoid. And here's the reasoning. Here's my reasoning. Number one, in best ball leagues, you need to be taking a running back in round 2. It's that simple. If it's not Travis Kelce, it should be a running back. And let the other people who are drafting incorrectly take these wide receivers. But specifically with DeAndre Hopkins, he's going to an Arizona team that has 4 wide receivers on the field, not 3, 4, plus a pass-catching running back at all times. What does that mean? No one is getting a massive amount of volume in that offense. So DeAndre Hopkins, if I'm paying the top dollar for a wide receiver, I need a guy who's going to get. That was just now you're just tripping me out. I need a guy. I need a guy who's going to get 12 targets per game on average. So I need or 10 targets. I need about 150 targets on the season minimum, ideally more, for a super stud level wide receiver. I don't know if I trust it with Hopkins. He's on a new team, and that team has just too many weapons to throw to at this point. Too many guys, too many names, and they tend not to focus in on one. So I'm worried about his volume.
Here's the real question. And by the way, audio better? I'm sorry about this, audience. Audio better?
It's better for now.
That means it's not perfect?
Well, your visual is looking pretty weird, so I have a feeling it's going to catch back up, but we'll see. Right now, you're sounding good.
All right, raise your hand if it's bad. I don't know. It's just maybe it's the internet. It's a rainy day here. I don't know if that matters, Anyway, yeah. Anyway, and just, stop me if it gets bad, because that's annoying to the audience, if it's like that. I can hear you perfectly. That's so weird, Anyway, so the real question is, if you had that first overall pick, no good, huh?
You went downhill again, man. This is not going well with that audio connection. It's a connection issue. I'm just going to keep pushing through, man. I don't know what to tell you. All right. So as we go through the second round of this draft, again, who am I avoiding? Another name that I'm avoiding is Aaron Jones. And the reason I'm avoiding Aaron Jones is because of AJ Dillon. Really, it just comes down to that for me. I don't mind him here. I dislike him less. Earlier in the season, he was going pretty much RB6 in the first round, RB8. He was going ahead of Eckler. He was going ahead of Drake, and I developed a hatred for him because he was too overvalued. I actually do think Aaron Jones here in the middle of the second round is actually fine value for who he is and what he's going to do. So that's okay. But I do think we're going to see a little bit of touchdown regression with him having a monster. And A.J. Dillon has looked really, really good for his team. What do you say about Dillon?
I just wanted to go back to okay, good. And just keep that thumbs up, thumbs down. Sorry about that. All right, AJ. Oh, what are you doing? You're pointing all over the place.
You're all over the place. 1 second, it's fine. Just keep talking, man.
Well, here's Nick. Nick's here, so you could talk to Nick.
All right, there we go.
Okay, So you want to introduce him?
Sure. All right, coming on the show, we've got Nick Rudman, the communication director from Underdog Fantasy, to talk some best ball strategy. How you doing, Nick?
What's up, Nick?
How are you? What's up, guys?
Can you hear us okay?
I can hear you great. You hear me?
Excellent, man. Good connection.
Yeah, coming in great. So Nick, you're privy to all of sort of the back end data for best ball leagues for not just this past season, but for the last few seasons. And earlier in the show, we were talking about lineup construction and what format was most ideal for trying to certainly win your small leagues. And now this big $1 million tournament that I'm
BBM, baby,
on the Underdog Fantasy site, which is very exciting.
Totally. As much as I'd like to say and think I am an expert, I've been playing fantasy my whole life. The users are much better at this game than I am. They simply just by playing more, because we're not really allowed to play too much outside of just amongst ourselves. I did work at draft as well as many of our other teammates did. So, we have seen a lot of what works and what doesn't. And even just by virtue of position limits and some of our rules, we try to protect users from themselves a bit. Like, you can't draft 7 quarterbacks just because it'll ruin the draft for everybody else. But I think the last big winner of draft did have 3 quarterbacks, which, some people, it's the 2 or 3 tight ends and the 2 or 3 quarterbacks, which I feel like is probably the most hotly debated construction aspect.
Yeah, well,
I found that anytime I drafted 2 tight ends, I was getting zeros from the tight end position because it's such a injury heavy position group that it should not be a debate. You must have 3 tight ends on your team, or you're getting zeros. And I just lived it. Of course, I was pretty high on Hunter Henry the first couple seasons of best ball, and
when you draft these injury-prone tight ends. But I think what Nick said is important, and he was talking about how the guy that won the big prize was a 3-quarterback roster, and if you draft 3 quarterbacks, you're usually picking from like the 17th to like the 28th quarterback. You're not going to take 3 quarterbacks if you're taking an elite quarterback.
Right.
So Nick, tell me, what is with Underdog? When did you guys officially launch the app?
We launched in late July, about the third week of July. It's been a little more than a month.
One thing that's different about Underdog that we noticed, compared to Draft, is the big $1 million contest. So I don't recall Draft doing that style of contest, although it could have been, but there weren't, but not to this size and extent. So tell me a little bit about how this one came about, and do we think it's going to fill?
We'll see if it fills. We were certainly prepared for it not to, just based on when we launched. It's not something we're too worried about or afraid of. We're prepared for.
I kind of want it not to because I love the overlays.
I know you guys are all cheering for the overlay. I don't blame you.
Yeah, I'm playing in it. Like, the less competition is better.
Totally.
Just to be clear for the audience who doesn't, not everybody knows what overlay is. Overlay is free money that the essentially the operator of a site is giving us to play their contest. I love overlay. I live for it. So anytime it's there, I'm happy. And when I think there's a chance it might happen, I'm just loading up in advance, hoping for it. You know what I mean?
So I have a couple questions for Nick though about Underdog. So I mean, if you look at Underdog, it's so obvious that the footprint of Draft is on there. It's the same interface. It's easy to use. I mean, what was that a priority? Just the ease of use. Like, I gave the app to my mother, and I said, "Can you figure this out?" And that's always a good way to see if it's easy. And within seconds, she's like, "Oh yeah, this is where the players are." And so, talk a little bit about the interface and how important that was. Because on some of the other sites, I go on there and there's just too many things, and my brain explodes.
Totally. So one, thank you. We hear this all the time. It doesn't get old. We have to have the best product. If our technology isn't the best in this market, we just don't have a chance. FanDuel and DraftKings are always going to have more money than us. Our game just has to be better, and it has to work better, and it has to be prettier, it has to be easier, and it has to be more fun. So as much as I'm not on here to, I can't even play FanDuel or DraftKings, so I can't test their product, but we certainly see everything the users are saying. It may be easier to make money on DraftKings right now because they have so many users. They have more fish or bad players. If you go on Twitter, you see we are the hardest place to play. Like, if you want to say you're a great best ball player and you want to say you're the best, you have to win on Underdog.
Yeah, that's what I noticed about the ADP. The Geek and I were just talking about how sharp the ADP is over there, and there's no free picks. Like, no one's still drafting Damian Williams accidentally or taking Darius Geis, who's now out for presumably the season. Whereas on some of your competitor sites, you can bank on those guys still going in the 7th round.
Yeah, they're still auto picking you Damian Williams on other sites. If someone's marked out on Underdog, we're not going to auto pick them for you.
Nick, one thing it's funny that you mentioned the softness versus we started this podcast and I was talking about some screenshots I've seen posted from so-called experts who are now just discovering the best ball format because it hit some of the more mainstream sites, and they're very proud of them. And I'm like, these guys have never played best ball before. Yeah. Like, they didn't have the experience, and they're actually out there showing off these just horribly constructed lineups, and with no one starting running back and 5 backups, and they're very proud of it.
Nick can't bash the people playing the game. He thinks every lineup's great. Don't do that to him.
Well, no, because they're not showing it.
That's all right. We can call it from a different website.
Cool. So they're showing something from DraftKings or FanDuel or DraftKings or one of these other ones. So it's like, no, you're right. There is some softness, but there's also softness to the advice about how to attack these tournaments.
Totally.
And that's why we try to focus here on we're trying to look at, all right, what's the optimal way to construct your lineup? Secondarily, which players to fill in those positions, which, great. But first we start with what's the optimal approach to building a lineup for this type of contest. I'm wondering, and I don't know if you have this or know this, it's one thing to try to beat a league with 12 people in it and come in first. It's a whole nother story to try to win a tournament where, well, actually, we'll segue that into explain the payout structure of the big $1 million contest on Underdog. How does that work? The BBM, the Bestball Mania, right? $1 million in prizes. So how does this work? I'm in a league against 12. What happens then?
So if you win your league of 12, you double your money immediately. If you come in second of your league in 12, you double your money.
Double.
So we thought we wanted to. It's hard to win the whole thing. One person wins the whole thing. We wanted to make it worth your time to even come in second place in the first round. Something attainable and worthwhile. And then we wanted to give the biggest prize we could to first place while still having a relatively flat payout structure. So it's $200,000 to first place. It's $100,000 to second place. And then after that, it's fairly flat. We definitely didn't want it to feel like a lottery. So much time and effort goes into these drafts. It's not, not to, bang on building lineups, but like you really got to sit in here for 45 minutes and do the whole draft. Yeah, you can auto draft, but most people are making their picks.
You aren't winning auto drafting, and my slow drafts are pretty much. I feel like your slow drafts have taken over my life. Every time I look at my phone, I'm up on a pick.
That's what I was gonna say. I love and hate Underdog because now it's like literally my obsession. I go get my morning coffee and sit on the toilet bowl. Guess what I'm doing, Nick? I'm sitting there drafting. You know what I'm saying? Is that a site? You could have me in commercials sitting on the toilet bowl with the drafting.
We hear that a lot. Yeah, good activity for that.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of the slow draft version, which has a 4-hour pause, because for me, it's really, really hard to actually get a block of 45 minutes or so, or an hour or so, to sit there and really focus in on one. But the 4-hour format, again, it's every time I look at my phone, I've got 2 or 3 picks up. I'm like, all right, let me do this.
You can do 100 at once.
Yeah, you could just do as many.
All
as
right,
you need.
I got a couple questions for Nick. All right, so you're not allowed to play, but you could still give out tips and actual advice. Who are some of the guys going in the, let's say, like the 10th, the double-digit rounds, 10th round or later, Nick, that you like this year, that in your home league drafts you're not leaving without? That's what we were talking about. Guys in certain rounds that you're just not leaving your draft without. Who are some of those guys for you?
So I should preface this with I'm a Patriots fan and I'm a homer, and I cannot remove that part of my brain. I know lots of people have moved on to just caring about fantasy. I still love the Patriots. Although we
respect that.
Wait, hold up. You haven't switched to the Bucs yet?
The Bucs are my second team. Fire the cannon.
Okay, there we go. Every Patriots fan has a Bucs hat. It's not just you. It's okay.
All right, here we go. So who are those guys that you're not leaving the draft without?
Homer aside, this guy is rising, not as fast as I would think he would be, is Damian Harris. Absolutely. Any Alabama back I'm already interested in. I know Trent Richardson's a famous bust. Bo Scarborough has not been great, even though he was my favorite out of all of them in college. He was so cool. But Damian Harris, just based on his pedigree, has a great chance. Josh Jacobs, Mark Ingram, Derrick Henry, they've had a million. Kenyan Drake. And the fact that the Sony Michel experiment is finally over. It's been so painful for me. I was yelling for Lamar Jackson during that draft. Tom was 40, and he's sitting right there for us, and we took Sony Michel.
I was going to say that not even, the joke is that not even Baltimore knew that they wanted Lamar Jackson because they drafted Hayden Hurst first. Yeah. So crazy. Damian Harris is a good pick late, and I'm surprised that there's apprehension about pushing him. I thought he would be up in like the 7th or 8th round at this point.
I think he's getting there, but slower than he should be.
Yeah, he's regularly available in the double-digit rounds right now.
He hasn't been widely identified. You said the Sony Michel experiment is over. I believe you. But it's not like Belichick has come out and said the Sony Michel experiment is over.
No, he hasn't.
He's still there. And so there's still some concern that Michel is probably going to be the lead back. Although, again, he's pretty much proven that he's not good.
I'm selling it. Like, we were so predictable. I'm a we guy. I say we when I talk about my teams. We were so predictable.
That shows your sincerity and passion. So
yeah, totally. Thank you. The Patriots were so predictable when he's on the field. Like if he's on the field, they're running the ball. He can't catch, which makes no sense because he was like a Kamara type in college. But
I think he actually can catch. They just don't want to throw to him. It's been mysterious why Sony Michel cannot be involved in the passing game. I don't understand it.
Wait a second. You guys are going a little too, I think, getting crazy. I mean, it's just injury that slowed him down. I mean, you remember that epic run in the playoffs 2 years ago? I mean, he was the most valuable fantasy player in the fantasy playoffs.
Those 6 playoff touchdowns he's been living off those touchdowns since. Those I could have scored, I say this often, I could have scored 4 to 5 of those playoff touchdowns. He had the best line in the league.
It reminds me a little bit of, the Mark Sanchez playoff run with the Jets. He got multiple years worth of horribleness after 2 good games. All right, let me stick with the Patriots topic for you for a second, because there's another sleeper on that team that may or may not turn out a sophomore wide receiver who was extremely disappointing in year 1, but now is kind of alone in a wide receiver core that I think is, has some issues. So N'Keal Harry. What do we think of N'Keal Harry? He's a guy that I end up with on a lot of my teams.
I wish I could speak with more confidence. I'm obviously super excited. I think one of the big things you're going to see with Tom leaving is really maybe a overhaul of how you think about the Patriots players in fantasy. In the past, you can't play a Patriots rookie in fantasy because Tom hates them. And the trust and the timing needs to be so perfect, and he's so anal, and I love him. But him and N'Keal, it was never going to work last year. It's just he needs the Troy Brown, he needs the Julian Edelman, the guys that he's been practicing with for 10 years that can read his mind. And all that said,
I guess that's why they thought it. I guess that's why they thought Mohamed Sanu would work, right?
I guess, yeah. We've always coveted him. I think he does feel like a Patriots guy. He was hurt. I'm not quitting on Sanu. It's been disappointing, but he was definitely hurt.
Sanu was one of those. Sanu to me was one of those. I think I'm smarter than you. Trades that Bill Belichick likes to make.
Manny Sanders was right there.
Yeah, it's
right. I don't like. We're ping ponging questions for you, Nick. I got one for you also. Something that was really interesting about the Underdog app is the cool marketing and the logo. I mean, who thought of that? How did you come up with them? I mean, you guys have to be loving that. Those posters have to be up everywhere. I've seen them. You have to have one in your house, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, we got some nice Underdog gear. We got some stickers. I'll have to get you guys some T-shirts.
That's cool.
So sort of our creative director, David Gamboa, is chiefly responsible for all of this. Me and him actually went to LA in March just before COVID happened, to sort of hunker down for a brainstorm of what are we going to call this thing. Once we knew it was real, we went out to LA to sort of work on the brand and the logo. And he's got a little Pomsky named Bandit, who's just a great little animal. And our logo is inspired by Bandit.
Very cool. So that's a profile, a shadow picture of Bandit right there.
Well, we knew we'd be underdogs in the space just because we're going up against the big dogs. So
I love that. All right, we'll go back and forth. You got more questions for Nick?
I do. So keep going. I want to jump back because this is topical to the topic of this podcast. Now, you said before about how Tom Brady just does not do well unless he's got a real connection with his wide receiver. That's his style. He's the system. He's the best system quarterback ever, right? But
it's not a system quarterback.
I believe he's the best player. Listen, I'm a Jets fan, and I am a Tom Brady fan.
Sorry.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got the Sunnis and the Shias arguing over here.
I love Tom Brady. I'm a big Tom Brady fan, even as a Jets fan. Much like I'm a Jordan fan, even though I love the Knicks and Patrick Ewing. I watched him play for so many years that you get to know the player, and after you eliminate the emotion of him destroying my dreams year after year after year, I'm like, dude, that guy was awesome, right? He's so good. But he needs to have his guys. Now he's on a new team. Chris Godwin, Mike Evans. These are names that are going in the second round. We were just on the second round talking about some players we don't feel super confident in. Should we have concerns about a guy in the age of Corona, barely practiced with these guys, going to a new team? He's an old guy. He's used to his system. they're telling him, hey, this is what we use for calls. You got to say 2 Harry 7. He's like, no, I like to say Omaha 12. He doesn't know how to learn new tricks. He's an old guy. How is he going to do on a new team at age 45?
43.
Actually, in TB12, he's like 28 because he's not human.
It's a fair question. I think I've heard that it's not like when Peyton went to Denver and they use all his terminology. He actually is learning new stuff, which is interesting to me.
I have concerns about a guy 20 years in one system.
I think I'm not worried about Tom. I think it's entirely possible that he just isn't in love with Mike Evans or isn't in love with Chris Godwin. And one of them, it just doesn't really work out. I mean, he's never had these hyper talents. He had Gronk, who was obviously a hyper talent. He had Randy Moss for a year or two. But it'll be interesting. I wouldn't be shocked if a guy like Scotty Miller ends up being, fantasy relevant.
Wow. What hold on. We got to clip that. That is a bold call on the Bold Call podcast. But you're right. You're right. That makes total sense. And you know what? This really is the old. I wish that we could have done this test 7 years ago when Brady was in his mid 30s, but now we have Brady with a better set of weapons and Belichick with a worse set of weapons. Yeah. So this really is the test. I mean, if the Patriots go 12-4 and the Bucs go 8-8, I mean, we just gotta crown Belichick now and forgive all the cheating and give him back his draft picks.
Wait.
I'll take back the draft picks.
Yeah. No. So you know what? I want
to bring this back around to our topic again. On the same note as what we just said, because I have concerns about Mike Evans. I have major concerns about Chris Godwin, and I hate that people are drafting Brady as high as they are. I think it's a terrible ADP. It's a mistaken draft where they're taking him because, again, new team. People are seeing the great Tom Brady with amazing weapons. They're not seeing the 43-year-old guy on a new team with a new system, maybe taking a while to get comfortable and with it. But what about Julian Edelman? He's got a quarterback now in Cam Newton that likes his tall wide receivers. And do you think Cam Newton is going to be the guy? And can he hit a receiver that's not 6'5"? And he likes to overthrow those passes, man. It's going to be hard to hit Edelman crossing the middle.
Touch on both your points. I'm still buying Tom in fantasy. I think he's going to be great. He'll figure it out. Maybe Mike Evans takes a hit or Chris Godwin takes a hit, but I'm still buying that offense. I'm buying Tom Brady. I think he's fantastic. I don't think there's any arm strength concerns. Like, just go watch the games last year. He's putting it 60 yards in the air still. He may have missed the guy, or we have terrible wide receivers last year, but I still think Tom is one of the best quarterbacks in football. With regards to Cam and Jules, I mean, I couldn't be higher on Cam. I think it was Evan Silva had just a great comment the other day that this is why he's not in Chicago, because when he comes into your locker room, he is the man, and that would kill Mitch Trubisky. So, we've already seen Stidham is now hurt. He can't handle it. Cam is the man. This is his team. I sort of like that Jules is separated from Tom. Just that now he's really all bought in on us. Like, it's just a little different when he's working out with Tom on the side, and now Tom is gone. It's really all about the Patriots. It is definitely a different era. I'm 30. I've been watching Tom Brady on the Patriots for 20 years. I feel like I get to watch football for the first time, almost like a totally fresh start. So all I wanted was fun and intrigue in the post-Tom Brady era. I've done enough winning, and I got that in spades with Cam Newton. I'm very excited, and I think he's going to be great with Jules.
I was going to say, at least you're not like a Yankees fan that's so selfish that any year that they don't win, they're angry and screaming and up in arms. You're like, you know what? Let's have some fun. I've had what, 14 playoff appearances in 14 years in a row. So many championships.
It's been exhausting. I need a break.
So much winning. It's basically, you get sick of the winning after a while. But
hold on one second. Hold on one second. What's good about Cam Newton for fantasy too is in a one quarterback league, you could, you don't have to pay for him, and then you could just cut him and go on to the next. The real challenge is in the super flex leagues where if you're relying on Cam Newton, the floor really is low with him. I mean, he didn't look great.
The floor is dead in week 1.
Right. Exactly. And, Cam Newton obviously relied on his mobility and all of that. Now, you just said something about Tom Brady that I just want to get, and then we'll move on from that. Was for fantasy, though, the reason that in the DFS Army rankings, we have him well below what Underdog ADP has is because compared to the rest of the field, nowadays, unless you throw for 5,000 yards and for 33 touchdowns without the running stats, and we know Tom Brady, it's basically the under-over is a half a yard for his rushing stats, you need to throw for 5,030. So if you think that he is locked into that, then yes, it is a good pick at ADP, the 10th QB, the 9th QB. But if it's a season where he's throwing for 4,400 to 4,628 TDs, that's the problem. That's when Ryan Tannehill could leap and all that. So totally. I like, your confidence in Brady. It makes me want to go back on Underdog and get a few shares, because every time I ignore a player, I always say to myself, what if I'm wrong? I need to at least get the FOMO shares of him.
I think I don't see why it can't be Peyton's first year in Denver. He has the weapons. Yeah, he's learning some new terminology, but he's in incredible shape. I don't care about his age. Age is just a number.
Yeah, I mean,
he has Peyton's first year in Denver numbers. That would be unbelievable.
Yeah, well, if you heard it here first, man. Like I said, that happens. Nick is coming back on the podcast every week.
I mean, seriously. Now, I do want to come back to Julian Edelman, who, again, a player that I love. I like him personally. He's an awesome guy. I loved him as a player. I am way off of him. He is on my absolute avoid list for this year. His skill set and the way that Cam Newton throws the football just don't mesh well for me. I don't think that Cam Newton is much better to have N'Keal Harry streaking down the middle and let me throw it up, or a tight end. The crossing pattern and trying to hit somebody with accuracy, which is Tom Brady's special. This is what makes Tom Brady amazing. He will put it exactly where you need to catch it. His accuracy is unbelievable. I think that Julian Edelman needs that. I don't think that Cam Newton has the skill set to lead him to the point where he's going to be able to catch it and yak. And I have a terrible fear, and I don't want to say it, I have a terrible fear that Edelman is going to get destroyed up the middle and not make it many games through the season because of an inaccurate. We've seen it before. You throw behind the wide receiver a little bit. He turns around. Yeah, he gets smashed and he's finished. So I do have.
I don't think you're wrong. As long as I've been playing fantasy, I've sort of avoided Patriots in fantasy. It's just so hard to predict, and the upside, Randy Moss is amazing. I struggle to think of other skill position players that have really been must owns for the Patriots. I guess Edelman has been great in PPR. Underdog is half PPR. I agree with you. I don't think he's going to have those same 11 catch games that he's used to. It'll be interesting. I mean, it's so new that it's really hard to say.
I got a question for Nick. You just hit on something, and this is on my list of questions to ask you. Was it a big decision, and how did you arrive at that decision as a company to go with half PPR versus full PPR?
I think it wasn't too tough of a decision for us. You're never going to make everyone happy. We just sort of felt like this isn't a sexy answer. Just split the baby. Some people like PPR, some people want standard, some want half. We just went with something we thought was sort of the least offensive. I personally do have sort of strong feelings that I do not like PPR. I think it rewards players that I don't think are that good in real life. Jarvis Landry has had years in PPR where his ranking in fantasy wide receivers does not align with his ranking in real life, which is sort of what I value. I think the best players should be the best players in fantasy versus the best players in real life.
Well, let me ask you a follow-up question to that then. So in one quarterback leagues, the quarterback is the least important player on the field in the game is fantasy. But in reality, obviously it's the most important position in all of sports. The super flex position I obviously takes care of that. So how do you square all of that? I mean, I know that Superflex isn't for everybody, but talk a little bit about how you forgive it for quarterback, but with PPR. And again, I've heard this debate before, so I'm just curious your take.
So I'm not positive we're forgiving it for quarterback. Quarterback is the most important position in sports, but there is a surplus of quarterbacks. Jared Goff made the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Jimmy Garoppolo made the Super Bowl last year. Having the best quarterback in the league is not mandatory for winning. And that's why I think you see some quarterbacks fall in the draft. I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with the draft this year and how many good quarterbacks there are and how few teams need a quarterback. I was trying to do math earlier in the season when I thought the Patriots were going to be terrible, trying to figure out how many teams are going to be worse than to get Trevor Lawrence, because everybody has a quarterback.
Right.
I'm trying to think it. Well, the Jaguars may or may not have a quarterback. We'll find out.
I think they do.
I think so, but we'll find out for sure.
Well, we were saying earlier when I was talking to the Geek, we've said this on a lot of podcasts, that quarterbacks, if you're not picked in the top 5 or 6 picks, it's not like it used to be. If you're Dwayne Haskins and you're pick 16, if you fail for a full season, they're going to move on, just like the Cardinals did with Josh Rosen. It's very different nowadays. So maybe you're a little insulated if you're Daniel Jones or if you're Tua, but the worst thing to happen is with the Jets, like with Sam Darnold. It's now we're going into year 4 and we still don't know whether it's his fault or not. So I think teams are more equipped to move on if it's not a top 5 pick at this point.
Yeah, I think you're right. I also think that we see better quarterbacks drafted maybe later. Even Pat Mahomes wasn't a top 5 guy. Deshaun Watson wasn't a top 5 guy. Russell Wilson, Kirk Cousins. So while obviously quarterback is tremendously important, I do think that there's enough quarterbacks out there that while it's sort of easy to find one in fantasy, it's not impossible to find one in real life.
Yep. And then
you've got me just thinking about this. The Bears probably need a quarterback.
Yep.
Redskins, we don't know, but maybe.
Football team.
That's right. The Washington.
You don't give any F's, do you, man?
The Washington Football Club.
Yeah.
They might need someone. I'm just going through this like
while you're thinking out loud. I have another fantasy a game question for Nick. Is okay. So best ball right now. You guys are smart. You do the game well. What do you think is the next game that is going to explode the fantasy industry? I mean, season long has been around forever. DFS is, it's here. There's people doing it. Best ball seems to be hot. Sports betting. What else do you think is next for the fantasy game?
We've got some, eventually we want to have a lot of games. We're going to have weekly drafts starting for the NFL week 1, just like we did a draft.
So I can keep playing. I can keep playing into the season.
Oh yeah.
Okay, good.
We will have best ball for most major sports in 2021. We plan on having weekly drafts in best ball for NBA, MLB, hockey, etc. But what's next? We eventually would like to host a lot of different games, and we've got a lot of different ideas. I don't want to give them all away, but there are certainly some. We are trying to increase the number of people you can play against and the amount of money you can win while still having a snake draft experience, which is hard because snake drafts, they take time. It's about sole ownership of players. Which to me is so important, just the emotional angle. Like, it's not as fun to beat someone if you have like 9 of the 10 same players to me, because you didn't really know that much better than them. You just knew a little bit more than them.
Right. Your wide receiver 3 and your defense was different.
Right. I'd throw this out there. One of the things I love about the best ball and the snake format, and if there was a way of turning it into sort of a tournament like we do for the season long, but weekly, one of the beautiful things, and it's just what you just said, is it's really a shark-free environment. You can't have, the DFS shark types coming in and hammering 150 lineups out automatically with an algorithm in that format. Somebody has to physically sit there and they have to physically draft the players. So that sort of represents a difference and an equalizer, a leveler, if you will, versus daily fantasy, where a lot of things are algorithmic based and we can generate 150 lineups in 10 seconds and upload them. We can't do that here. You've got to put yourself on the line.
I mean, first of all, this isn't exactly right, but I'm pretty sure the guy that won the biggest prize ever at draft did so with a single entry and had only ever deposited like $100 on the site. But our 2 biggest appeals, I think what makes Underdog so appealing is that you can win and that anyone can win. And it's not a math puzzle. This is about how much you know about football, which I think is sort of what we all love to talk about.
It's funny that you said a math puzzle, because DFS absolutely is a math puzzle wrapped up in, sports being the driver of it. Whereas you're right. This, when you get into best ball, it's really, hey, I'm into fantasy football. I'm really good at it. Question for you on that note. And we talked about different games that you could play. Have you guys considered an auction format best ball league? Has that ever even come up as an idea?
Yeah. So, right at the end of draft, we did have a game called Blind Auction, which it never really took off. I think it was just maybe a little bit too in the weeds. We love the idea of auction. We're not building it right now. It's not in the works. It's a huge project. It'll come down the line, but it's a great idea. Auction is so fun. It's something we would definitely love to have.
The people
it's a great concept, though. I'm trying to think how I would try to keep the
people that play auction drafts. They always say once you go auction, you're never going to want to do a snake draft again. I disagree with that. Like, I think auction's awesome, but there's something about snake drafts. And again, I've been snake drafting is 20 plus years. I never get tired of it. I literally, like, what my routine is, Nick, is I even before we started working with you guys as a partner, I would come sit down on my computer and I'm doing a 30-second underdog draft. I mean, it never gets old for me, and I just feel like I'm the typical player out there.
That feeling that you just described is why we exist as a business, and like why we've started out doing pretty well, because there is something about drafting we all grew up with that we all love it. And what we tried to, your first question about the design of the product and the ease of use, is we try to recreate that feeling you had 20 years ago doing a live draft with your friends where your buddy takes the player you want and it fucking ruins your day.
It's true. Right. The word snipe was commercialized from doing drafts. So just if you've been listening to this podcast and you want to give Underdog a try, I've been talking to a couple people. So many people know about it. You guys have done a great job marketing it out there. But go to your app store, Underdog Fantasy, download it. It's literally plug and play. Put a few bucks in there. Use code DFS Army. Let them know that we sent you over there. And get in one of these Best Ball Mania drafts where you can win the big money. Or if you just want to try to put in $10 and pull out $100 from a regular 12-person league, do that. You have 30-second clocks. You have the you guys went to 4-hour timer now, right?
No 4 hours. Yeah.
Right. They stopped doing the 8-hour timer because we're getting too close to the season. So don't get auto picked at 2 a.m. when you should be sleeping. Set your cue.
There's a pause overnight. It pauses from 2 a.m. to 8 a.m. now, so you won't get
the pause is huge. The pause is huge.
Yeah, you don't want to wake up to a bunch of auto picks every day ruined.
The thought that went into that, though, again, I told you, every time I look at the phone, it's like you're up on your next 5 picks. There's no way I can pull this off without getting auto picked without the overnight pause. So good call there. That's been really helpful.
Nick, what's the best position or your favorite draft slot this year, 1 through 12?
I hate to say that it's 1. I like 12. I'm a turn guy. I feel like I love making 2 picks in a row. The first pick, it always bothers me how I feel crappy my second pick is. Although this year I do see a ton of CMC Lamar, which is about as cool as you can start. Like, even if you don't win, at least you're going to have fun and it's going to be a cool team.
Winning is fun, Nick. Winning is fun.
Winning is fun.
Yeah. So that we were just talking about that slot 1 is great because you get CMC, but literally you hate the picks. You're reaching it on your second pick.
Totally.
Yeah. What were we going to say, Geek?
Well, I'll take CMC and some crappy second pick all day. I mean, CMC is worth both of those players that you get at the end of round 1. So there's never a time when I'm not happy to get CMC. One question I have, one more for you, Nick. Mark Cuban's one of the principal investors at Underdog Fantasy. Yeah. Tell me about that. Do you guys get to meet Mark Cuban? He's an awesome guy.
I have not met my close personal friend and business partner, Mark Cuban. But I love that he's involved. We love Mark. Cool, obviously, huge fans of Mark. Our CEO, Brandon, and our chairman, Jeremy Levine, they put it together with, through personal connections, and we're love to have him on board.
Yeah, pass on that we enjoyed Jeremy on Adam Lebanon's podcast, but we think that your appearance here is way better. Just so you know.
Thank you. I'll pass it along for sure.
Yeah, Tom, he was good, but you outshined him here, so. No, one thing is that Underdog does a great job of communicating really what the product is, and we're proud over here to be partnering with you and to and talk about it, because we'd probably be talking about it anyway. We probably shouldn't have told you that, but no, we're passionate about the product, and we're going to keep playing it, and we're going to keep going in our Slack chat where we have about 5,000 members now, and we're going to keep pumping it and telling them to get them used to playing over there. So
thank you guys, really appreciate that.
Yeah,
it's really fun to see how the community sort of rallied around us a bit.
All right. We love our best ball, and we love underdogs around here. That's DFS Army also. So we feel some connection there.
All right. So that's Nick Rudman. He's from Underdog. We're going to say goodbye to you right now, Nick, and then we're going to close out the show. Thanks again for coming on, and it's good to have you. Do you control the Underdog Twitter account? Is that you?
I do. That's me.
All right. So when we tag in there, you say hello, and we'll put some clips up of this. And thanks again for coming on this show.
Please. Thank you, man.
All right. Bye-bye, Nick.
See you guys.
Take care.
That was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Learn a little more about the behind the scenes going on at DFS Operator site, the newest one. And we do love Bestball. I mean, what are you going to do? We love it. We love the format. So their contest is great. I do think there's going to be overlay.
Yeah, I can't believe you said that to him, man.
Why not? Listen, what are we pushing? Why do I play? I want overlay. Dude, you're happy to fucking fund a thing, $1 million. You're going to leave $200,000 on the table. I can get the free monies. Yeah. And that's what I want you guys to know who are doing this. When you're drafting these, go for the overlay. But one last note I would say to everybody who's listening is when you do play best ball, don't just do the tournament, because you're going to judge yourself very harshly based on trying to win a tournament of 43,000 people. You really need to come in first or like top 50 in that one to make a big chunk of money. And top 50 out of 40K is not easy to do. Trust me. You're much better off focusing most of your money. Do a couple of tournament entries for shits and gigs, but most of the money should be a league against 12 other people that, you know, it's got a $25 entry. That's fine. It's a $300 prize pool. You come in first, you make $150. That's great. You can win a bunch of those. So you want to win and turn profit, throw some bullets at the big tournament, but don't forget, because we judge ourselves harshly when we don't win whatever we're doing. And it's really, really long odds to win against 44,000 people. It's fun to play it, want to do it, but make sure that the focus of your entries, it's just like a season-long league, man. It seems like bullshit, but then at the end of the year, I got $1,500 from your league that I win every year. I get another $2,500 from another league that I win every other year. And it's like, holy shit, that was a nice little chunk of money. Yeah. Let me buy myself something nice. Let me get a big-ass TV. Let me buy myself a trophy. I can walk over there because I got no pants on, so I can't walk over there. But
you know what? You know what I love about, like, what I loved about the draft app versus some of the other ones is that you could just play these $3 drafts, because I don't want to play a $1 draft. It's just like, it's almost meaningless. I'm sorry to be so frivolous, but there's something mentally about a $3 or $5 draft where I care a little more. So like if I had a $1 draft going and, you know, just say dinner was put on the table, I'd probably just leave it in auto draft. But think about a $3 or $5. And these are the best way to practice for your real drafts. You're not going to get rich playing a $3 draft. You're going to get rich doing the things that you just said about the $25 Best Ball Mania. But if you want to have stake in the game, a little something, so you can get real people drafting against you instead of someone taking Tim Tebow in the first round of a mock draft, that's why these are good. These are the best practices, any best ball, especially on Underdog, to practice for your real fantasy draft.
100%. When you're on the clock, I mean, that's why we originally started playing best ball leagues, because it was much more fun than mock drafting, which was generally going to be against a bunch of people taking Tim Tebow or stupid picks. You know, when there's even just a couple of bucks on the line, all of a sudden you're taking it serious and you learn what your leans are. Like, you're on the clock. There's 30 seconds. It's the second round. You're looking at Leonard Fournette. You're looking at Todd Gurley. You're looking at like, who's the third? James Conner. And you're like, which of these three am I going to take here? You know? And then you're like, you got to make a decision. Pump. Fournette. I went back to it. I don't care that people are going to call me a donkey from shows that don't know what.
It almost makes you want to take it more. By the way, was my audio okay once we got it straightened out?
Better halfway through. It was just an internet issue you were having over there. It got better, so you were fine.
You know what happens is, like, and again, this is put this in the category of who gives a crap about my internet. But no. But I'm saying is, I wonder if anyone else has had this issue when they're streaming or doing live podcasts. Let me know. It's like when I start clicking on different Chrome tabs, that's when it happened. But when I stay on the original tab and I can see you and I'm talking to our guests, it was no problem. So
no one cares.
Yeah, no, I caveated it by saying no one cares. Hey, by the way, we were talking about Jerick McKinnon earlier. I wanted to talk about him. Listen, we'll go long on this podcast. No big deal. I think that if he's still available in like the 15th round, and there's usually no running backs that I like there. McKinnon's moving up on Underdog. He's now like in like the 13th round, the 12th. He's moving. He's the pass catching running back in a Shanahan offense. I could see him having like a Matt Breida-ish type season. where he can do a lot of damage on 9 touches, on 11 touches. I don't think you should sleep on Jerick McKinnon. I know it's been like 2 years since he was even healthy, and sometimes guys take 2 years to get healthy. He took a pay cut to stay with the 49ers, so I don't want you to cross him off your list, and I want you when you finally put up your running back rankings to consider him in the top 45 running backs.
Let me tell you something about Jerick McKinnon. All right, I coined the phrase J-Rock McQuinnon years ago. I was the original discoverer of Jerick McKinnon. But no, I don't get it. Without an injury to Tevin Coleman, he's not going to be worth shit. And if you're taking him in round 13 in the Best Ball League, this is exactly what people should never do.
I said round 15, but yeah, I mean, yeah,
right, I'm going to go to round 15. What is that? Give me the math on that. That's like pick 145 ADP. Let me tell you who's around there. Let me tell you who's around, because this is important.
He's your RB5, your RB6. I mean, that's who you're, I mean, you want a guy with
round. I'm just going to say, let me find Jerick McKinnon here in the rankings. I'm going to try to look for him as we're talking about, but I'll tell you names you can get instead of Jerick McKinnon right around that. How about Randall Cobb, who's going to be a starter and putting up points?
How about in the running backs? Running backs, I'm talking about.
No, forget running backs.
That's what I'm talking about.
Players available but if you're that area.
If you're looking for a running back in that time frame, if you've
if you've waited that long for a running back, your running back position is going to be crap. You're done. Steven Sims is available after his after him. The running Anthony McFarland, like the running backs that are there are shit. But if you've waited till the 15th round, you shouldn't be taking running back. If you've waited this long to take a running back, you're dead. You already lost.
There's no bigger lover of Steven Sims than me. But what I'm saying is in a best ball Steven Sims, it's no problem. But in a season-long league, once we start getting and doing our season-long leagues, it's going to be hard to start Steven Sims if he has 1 or 2 bad weeks. And, we like him. We'd like him to catch fire just like he did last year. But Jerick McKinnon is one of those guys that has a role, and then if there's an injury, his role will likely increase. That's why I like him in that area. If you're someone who just needs that 4th or 5th running back, you're just looking for some depth, I think you can do worse in that area than Jerick McKinnon. People have basically scratched him off their list. I thought I was going to be chalky by promoting him, but it seems like listen, you're a good sense of what of people think as well, and your opinion matters. But I think that in your season-long drafts, I think that's a great last-round pick if you can. Because in your home,
let me iterate. I don't mind Jerick McKinnon in the last round of your season-long draft.
Yeah.
He absolutely will come to relevance, especially if Tevin Coleman gets hurt again, or if Raheem Mostert gets hurt, which he could because he's not a guy who is.
Those guys don't catch passes either.
Tevin Coleman can catch a pass, but I mean, Tevin Coleman does catch passes. He hasn't been thrown to very often, but they threw to him in Atlanta, and he was able to catch passes.
I don't think that's I don't want to click off his tab and
skill set. I think it's in his skill set to catch passes. But yes, McKinnon will come to relevance if those guys get hurt a lot. Let's face it. So he does come to. But I mean, I'd rather have Boston Scott.
Yeah, but he goes earlier. He goes in especially with the news of Miles Sanders' lower body injury. He's been going in like the 11th, 12th round. So, I mean, that's
a name. And Damian Harris, Snacks Harris. I call him Damian Snacks Harris. It's my nickname for him.
I like it.
But he goes right around that point too. I'd rather have Damian Harris. I mean, there's just other names as our aforementioned guest, Nick mentioned. So there are just other names that I think he's fine. But like if in a best ball league, if he's your RB3, you've already lost your league. Like you're not going to win that at all. So, or if he's your RB4, like if you waited that long for running back, you're going to lose. So don't do that.
Yeah, I'm just looking into how many catches Tevin Coleman had last year.
A little research there. I would say though, with all of this, because we were talking about late round players that we wind up on all of our teams, I'm just gonna, I'm looking here really deep in the ADP, and I'm seeing Preston Williams. I'm seeing Jonnu Smith. A guy who I'm liking more and more, Austin Hooper, seems to be doing well, integrating in Cleveland. No one wants him. He's dropping it's really interesting on the ADPs on the different sites. Again, the sharper site. Hooper is like way down on Underdog to the point where you can get him after Jonnu Smith. And I really love him there. I didn't like him from his ADP on the other sides because he was going, 7, 8 overall at the tight end position.
Hey, real quick, I looked this up. Tevin Coleman, the last 3 years of receptions, and he's played mostly full seasons, 21, 32, 27. He hasn't really been a pass catching back. And I think that he has that perception. I think a lot of people think what you just said, that he's a pass catching back. He has not been. He has actually been bad as a pass catcher in that role. So that's what I'm saying. I don't mean to be touting Jerick McKinnon too much, but I think there's a definite role. I think Jerick McKinnon has like a floor of like 40 receptions, and in a Mike Shanahan offense, it could be. You said Austin Hooper too. Isn't it funny how like he started off as like tight end 9 and now he just keeps getting pushed down and further. Like now he's a value. Like
now I like him.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you there.
Now I love him here. I mean, he's going in the Blake Jarwin, Chris Herndon zone, and like, dude, that's Austin Hooper. I love Austin Hooper there. I didn't like him as TE. So, but on the tight end position group too, man. Hayden Hurst is probably the most mysterious and strange ADP of them all. I don't have one share of Hayden Hurst. I've never seen Hayden Hurst be productive in the National Football League. I don't understand it. Who is Hayden Hurst? He took a picture, he was ripped, and that was it.
Yeah, no, Hayden Hurst he's going at like the tight end 9. I was in on Hayden Hurst when he was tight end 17. I was totally buying there. And as he moved up and up, I think the price is fair. In fact, one I was listening to the other day who I really enjoy their opinion, he had said that he has tight end, he has him as tight end 6 overall. So I was like, okay, like I see it. I could see it. Austin Hooper, I mean, he was tight end 1 before he got hurt. And it's not like Austin Hooper is this world-beating athlete. He's just a good pass catcher. And if Hayden Hurst fills in, the opportunity's there. So I could see it going either way. It wouldn't shock me.
Where were the good games from Hayden Hurst when Mark Andrews was injured all year?
Well, Mark Andrews is just better. I mean,
but he was hurt. He was only on the field half the time. Where was Hayden Hurst during all of this?
Yeah, I mean, he was efficient and he caught a lot. He just didn't get a lot of targets. So who knows? We shall see.
I don't trust it. I don't trust it. I think he's just ripped and he's big and he's got muscles, and people got excited. They saw a picture of him, and I got excited too, man. And the guy's ripped, but you know what? That's not really the most important skill set for a pass catcher. I don't know. We'll see.
Sticking with this theme, we could do a couple more and then wrap it up. So who's a player, wide receiver wise? Because you and I both agree that we're taking running backs early, and then we're going to attack the wide receiver position in that I don't even want to call it a tier. It's like a cluster of DJ Shark, McLaurin, DK Metcalf. I have Cortland Sutton in there. You do not. That's fine. So who's a wide receiver that you're just any draft that's important to you that you're not leaving without?
I'm going to say it's the late round guys. I'm less concerned about the cluster because
so who is it?
I like a lot of those guys.
Right? Not in the best ball.
Shark and Metcalf. I love all those guys. So I'm not going to say because it's a cluster and you have to make a choice every time. I love them all. So no, more importantly for me, and we like Will Fuller and Marquise Brown. We like all these guys. But going really, really deep, because this is where I think you can make decisions that change your draft. Like Emmanuel Sanders is a guy I always reach for pretty much around ahead of where he's going.
Yeah, I'm with you.
He goes right around. All right. The zone that he's in for ADP, I'll give it to you right now. He's there with Sterling Shepard, with Deshaun Jackson, Brandon Ayuk, Anthony Miller. That's where his level is. That's where his ADP is right now. I'm always reaching when CeeDee Lamb and John Brown is on the board and Deebo Samuel, who I love, but he's hurt. That's where I reach for Emmanuel Sanders. And the reason is we've seen explosive games from Emmanuel Sanders throughout his career. He has that skill set. Now he's with Drew Brees, who doesn't have anyone else to throw to. It's Mike Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. The first time in a long time Brees has had a WR2 that was legitimate. I think he could have incredible games, and I just love it as a late pick. It doesn't really cost me much if it fails, but I think the only way it fails is if he gets hurt.
I got a couple other questions on my sheet for you here, Geek. Which one of the Miami running backs do you prefer this year in a PPR? Jordan Howard or Matt Breida?
I prefer Breida, but I don't have almost any exposure to either of those guys, and I won't.
Okay. You and I talked about in May. These are the questions I wrote down to ask you. You and I talked about in May how we thought Ronald Jones was one of the best values as an 8th or 9th round pick. He is now squarely in the 5th round. And even though I think that price is fair, are you willing to pay it in the 5th round?
No. I'm willing to pay if I've waited on running back, but I'm rarely waiting on running back.
See, you get addicted to the discount. I don't think that you or I if you've been playing best ball since February, like we have, and we've been playing a lot on Underdog lately, and you got used to that 8th round price, you're not paying a 5th rounder. You're never gonna pay $12 for a cup of coffee you've been paying $5 for. You're just not going to do it.
I also have exposure to the guy from when he was priced really cheap. So like I got my exposure to him. I like Ronald Jones, but he doesn't catch passes. He is another guy, and that Tampa team has not shown itself to be a focused on the run team. So there's just nothing there that makes me want to take him in the 5th round. I like I said, when you're talking about where he's going right now, and I'm just going to bring that up here.
I'd go in the 5th round.
Yeah, but I'm looking who's around him. I'd rather take Devin Singletary. I'd rather take J.K. Dobbins, Tevin Coleman, Raheem Mostert, Kareem Hunt. That's about it. So I mean, once that group does go, and now you're making a decision between Ronald Jones and Jordan Howard.
Yeah, he's in the higher end of that cluster now.
Yeah,
I don't understand Dobbins' ADP. You brought him up a little bit, and I mean he's not starting. I mean, yes, he's the better back, and he probably will earn more work. But I mean, if you draft Dobbins in like the 10th round, which he's not going, he's going like the 6th round. But if you draft, that's no problem. It doesn't work out, you can cut him. But you're not going to want to cut Dobbins if you draft him in the 6th round. That's why. And if he literally puts up very low single-digit fantasy points for 3 weeks in a row, how are you going to hold that guy on a bench when your bench is 5 or 6 players? I'm right, and as much as you know me, I have Dobbins as my number 2 overall dynasty rookie pick, but I do not think he's a wise redraft pick at his current ADP.
I think that the hope with Dobbins, and not the reality, but the hope is that he will supplant Mark Ingram, but the reality is that he's going to get touches anyway. Like, he will be out there. Right, so is he that much worse than Tevin Coleman? He's basically Tevin Coleman to Mark Ingram's Raheem Mostert. I mean, that is what's going on there.
You have to remember, he's a rookie. Mark Ingram is like the spiritual leader of that team. Him and not even Lamar Jackson. Like, Mark Ingram is the rah-rah guy. He's the salty veteran. He's almost like very Frank Gore-like, where he's been around for a while. He's been good. He's a Heisman Trophy winner in college. He's been a top running back in the league, and he's just an alpha personality. It's not easy to push a guy like that out of the way, even when you're outperforming him. Now, there's no doubt that after Dobbins breaks 270-yard runs in the first 2 weeks, that he's probably going to be in an even split. But I just think that the upside is so limited in the first 3 to 4 weeks of the season that you're asking for a problem in redraft when you take him that high. I could be wrong.
The move is much safer in best ball, where especially if you get both guys, because if I could get Ingram and J.K. Dobbins, I'm also protected from injury, and now I have a running back on a studly team. I'd also point out that Gus Edwards, even though he did nothing with it, and I think it's a talent issue, but Gus Edwards was getting 12 to 14 carries a game as the backup to Mark Ingram last year, and Ingram is not going to get 25 touches. He's a 16 touch a game guy as well. So it's not like, I think it's going to be RB. I think it's going to be 1A and sort of 1C, not B, but I think it'll be a 1A, 1B situation where you get a 16-12 kind of ratio of touches. Yeah. And if talent shines through, eventually J.K. Dobbins, but I don't think either guy is going to be like, you don't want either one of these guys anchoring your team this year. I don't mind them on best ball because they'll pop up on their pop weeks, and that Baltimore team is going to score so many fucking touchdowns that there's enough to go around. Like, they just score 5 of them every game. So when there's 5 to go around, a couple just accidentally find their way onto your guy. That's a best ball play and a GPP strategy.
Excellent. All right, man. I think we did an hour and 20 minutes. We had Nick Rudman on from Underdog Fantasy. I mean, that was a good show. I always enjoy talking to you, and it was cool to have a guest on and talk to him. And yeah, man, why don't we wrap it up right here?
There we go. So, remember, like and subscribe to the channel.
down. Yep, like and subscribe. You'll get notifications when we go live.
You need those notifications. We don't just do best ball here on the DFS Army YouTube channel. It's everything. Daily NBA breakdowns. You get the Unplayable Lies PGA show with Josh, DFS Up North.
That's a good show. That's a good show.
You gotta watch that. He's so
I don't
good.
even like golf, and it's good. He's good on podcasts.
He's great. And we will have let me give a little spoilers for the upcoming NFL season. What we just worked out. We will have Josh, DFS Up North, who does Unplayable Lies. We will have Bobby Wow, NFL millionaire, and myself.
Love that guy.
Bobby Wow's the man. Doing weekly, 3 times a week, the showdown breakdowns for us. We're also going to have everybody involved in the weekly content, but the showdown breakdowns shows that we do, the Don't Be a Donkey, the Where My Turds At, all of this where we cover the Thursday night, the Sunday night, and the Monday night games. We just kind of worked it out just before. So we're going to have an awesome crew together to break down those NFL showdowns. We've got of course, the weekly main slates cover. That's my role, but also we all get involved in that. And of course, our season-long content with Season Long Says.
I was just going to say, we're going to do our Waiver Wire podcast. That's coming back. I mean, I enjoyed doing that for you guys. I mean, this is, it was useful. I had a lot of guys come back to me and say, hey, your Waiver Wire bid suggestions kind of fit my league. So we're going to do that again for you. We're going to have I think we're going to record on Monday nights or Tuesday, the latest. And also in the DFS Army draft kit, which you can go right now and see Geek's rankings, see my rankings, see Flex Shane's rankings. They're all up in there. We're going to have another tab for the weekly waiver wire. So if you missed the podcast, you can just go, if you're a DFS Army member, and click there and see my waiver suggested waiver bids each week.
One of my favorite things is the fact that we're in leagues together.
I'm stealing my guys.
I get your waiver wire list. It's such an advantage. I know exactly who to go for. I'm like, all right, here we go. Pump up the bid. The problem with me is I spend all my FOB like week 2 anyway.
That's how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah, but I'm always wiped out.
You know what? Why don't we do another show in the next few weeks of how it can just be like a 20-minute show and tell people waiver wire strategies for their season-long leagues? I think that's a good one.
I'm all about it. All right, let's wrap this one up.
All right.
Bold calls, the show where you get actual bold calls. None of that milquetoast crap.
We're going to have our bold call show where we do our 80th percentile projections. That's coming up too.
That'll come up as well. So like and subscribe to the channel. Sign up at dfsarmy.com as a VIP. Do it today. We're raising prices very soon. We're going to have an NFL only. By the way, part of our pricing structure change, we're going to have an NFL only subscription this season. So people who are just NFL people don't want to pay, $40, $60, $80 a month for a DFS full blast, subscription.
That's smart. I like that.
Yeah, we're doing an NFL only one. I know we have a lot of people who only come for fantasy football. I come from the fantasy football background. I love MMA. I love my DFS sports.
I know plenty of people that would just play fantasy football and just want to bail and just kind of take the rest of it. Fine. Sure. No problem. But
you play fantasy. You want to play daily fantasy too. So we cover all of that. So we have a new sub coming up for that. But if you're hey, I want to do all sports, do it now. I'm talking about now. Get in there and sign up as a VIP today, because that is going to be a lot more expensive down the road as we've added so many sports, and we're going to be splitting things up a little bit. We always hold the pricing for all of our members, so it never goes up. People are locked in at whatever they signed up for, and as we've added things to our site, I mean, we started years ago. As we've added things, got more robust, more contributors, esports, NASCAR, all these different side sports that are just a lot of staff to cover. We now want to kind of get those guys taken care of, and so we're kind of setting up little side subscriptions to those guys, but VIP covers everything, and it's still the same. Get it signed up today. That'll do it for this one. Thank you to Underdog Fantasy for sending Nick Rudman our way, and we'll be back next time with another Bold Call Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you.
Got the best coaches in the game, we really ain't playing. We regroup up in the Slack chat where the coaches debrief. We be piecing these puzzles, occupy the chunk of the pie. Ain't no lie when we hit the block, helmets